Good morning. I'm Jeanne Mulhern with Soul Property Advisors,
And I'm Liz Kroft, also with Soul Property Advisors.
and we're realtors, as many of you know who are joining this call. This call this week or today happens to be focusing on what is it like for a seller who's interested in selling their home, and can they even sell their home in this environment? Liz, are you getting questions from your potential sellers on what the shelter in place rules, how do they get their home marketed, and how do they initially get started with the process?
Yeah, we've been getting a lot of questions from sellers and buyers alike. Just is real estate still being conducted? Are people able to see homes? Are they listing them? Is there still demand out there? What does the process look like right now? There's some folks who certainly want to take advantage of the market today, or need to for one reason or another. And yeah, things have slowed a little bit, but there are still new listings coming to the market and homes closing escrow every week.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about the process. I downloaded a graphic that I thought I would share, and we can step through it and highlight the areas that are a little different in the process right now. So here we go.
Yeah, and while you're pulling that up, Jeannie, so the county has recognized real estate as an essential service. Now it comes with some caveats, which we'll sort of touch on as we go and discuss the process. Open houses have obviously been canceled, and there's limitations on how many folks can be in a property at any one time.
Right. Yep.
And luckily, a lot of the vendors who support real estate transactions are also essential services. Folks like inspectors and contractors and landscapers, everyone who keeps our homes safe and healthy for us.
Right. Title companies. Okay, so we're going to step through this graphic. And again, we're going to talk about the fact that if you're a seller, the first thing that you need to do is find a trusted real estate agent who can work with you and your family to get your home sold. Find out what your motivation is. And so it begins with you, the seller, and your support network. And that includes your spouse or your significant other, your kids, any other family members that might be involved in the decision-making process when it comes to selling your home. And then you're going to garner the assistance of, of your agent. In California, we don't have attorneys. However, some significant or complex transactions may require an attorney. But for the purposes of just selling a residential property, your agent will be the one who'll be able to guide you through that. Mm-hmm. So you make that initial decision to sell your home, and you contact your agent, and your agent is going to be providing you with information on who additional parties are as you step through getting your house ready to go on the market. Mm-hmm. Liz, what are some things that need to be considered in the current environment when it comes to preparing your home for sale?
Yeah, well, first off, if you're uncomfortable having, an agent coming through your home, or if you're interviewing a few, a number of agents now are doing FaceTime or Zoom calls for an initial consultation, and asking that the homeowner, take them on a FaceTime tour of the property and kind of zoom in on certain things and see the features as a way to kind of stay safe and healthy. So as far as preparing a home, once you decide to sell it, there's things we do. There are seller disclosures that need to be signed. Those can all be done electronically through an e-signature tool like DocuSign, or Zip Forms has one as well. Inspections are always great to do ahead of time. Inspectors are one of the vendors that are an essential service, and we always advise our clients to do inspections ahead of time. It just it answers more questions for prospective buyers and takes a lot of uncertainty off the table for them. And also removes some negotiation leverage from buyers when you disclose everything ahead of time.
And you know what I found? So I had a showing this weekend with a buyer, and I found that by having the home inspection and the pest inspection with me, enabled us to focus in on some of the summarized items that needed attention as we were going through the property.
Hmm. Yeah. And so, if a home is vacant, a lot of times in the past, we would always recommend that it be staged. Unfortunately, at this time, staging is not an essential service, but we are doing virtual staging. So that's kind of a Photoshop effect on the photos we have of a vacant home, so that it kind of gives that feel of being lived in and feeling homey, and prospective buyers, when they're looking online, can see, how would a room be laid out.
Mhm. Liz, how is it any different right now in talking with a prospective seller on how to price their home in this market versus a market before COVID?
Um, yes. We have to be a lot more methodical than we were in previous markets, where you had the flexibility of open houses, and the market was a little more secure. I think we have to be really strategic. Each property is unique. We'll have a different buyer pool, obviously. So what we might consult some sellers on won't apply across the board.
Right. And are there any special documents that are needed in this current environment when we are taking a listing with a seller?
Yeah, there are two. One is an addendum to the listing agreement, and there's another one, I forget the full name of it. It's called the PED form, Property Entry Advisory Disclosure, I think. Um, and those just talk about staying safe and secure, and when possible, buyers should be viewing things virtually online before going to the property. Sellers have every right to deny entry into their homes if they wish. The Santa Cruz County Health Department has limited us on who can see what kinds of properties. So if a tenant or an owner are currently residing in their property, we're not allowed to do any showings and have folks through.
You know, the property that I showed this weekend was vacant. So I made an appointment because ideally my clients didn't want to be there if another agent and their clients were going to be there. We all showed up with our masks and our gloves to walk through the property, and they felt extremely comfortable with that particular process. Now, the other thing is with a client who finds a home that they really like, but they don't have access to it, can they still make an offer?
They can, yeah, absolutely. Offers can be drafted and signed electronically. Pretty much everything that we have to sign these days can be done electronically. And we advise our clients to put a clause in there that if they're unable to see the home, but on paper or in the virtual tour, they love it, we will add in some language that it's subject to them being able to see and tour the home, or conduct inspections if those haven't been done yet.
So when you're working with your seller and you're doing the initial consultation, and just before you put the house on the market and it goes on to MLS and all the other feeds so that the virtual tours are up there, what questions would the seller have about accepting an offer or negotiating an offer from a buyer?
Obviously a lot of sellers are looking at price. One of the big ones that we're looking at right now is the strength of the financing that buyers have. We'll talk a little bit more about that in one of our next Zoom calls, I know. But just making sure that buyers are qualified today, I think, is the biggest question a lot of sellers have.
And are you seeing that escrows are being extended for a longer period of time than they have in the past to allow for those prospective buyers to work with the sellers and kick the tires, so to speak?
Yeah, we are seeing some that are slightly longer. And one of the other reasons that they're being extended is due to the appraisal process. A couple of weeks ago, when things were just getting started with the shelter in place, there were some concerns about whether appraisals could be conducted in a timely manner, and could appraisers even access homes if there were residents in them. So we've seen some drive-by appraisals where they will go and walk around the exterior of the home. I've heard of some cases where the appraiser will call the owner or the tenant and have them kind of do a FaceTime walkthrough while they're standing outside the window.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yep.
yeah, and we've heard of others where, banks are just delaying the appraisal altogether, by, I think, 90 to 120 days if necessary.
Mhm. Awesome. So at the end of the day, in terms of, again, we're talking about sellers here and making and helping sellers overcome any anxieties that they might have in their wanting to sell and whatever their motivation is. What are some of the tools that we provide for our sellers to allow the maximum marketing?
Yeah, so long before this, a lot of buyers have started their search online.
Mhm.
Uh, you know, most buyers find properties through Zillow or Redfin or Realtor.com, or it pops up on their social media somewhere. So we've been operating in that space on behalf of our clients for years already. Um, One thing that I've started doing for our listings is virtual tours. And if you haven't seen what a virtual tour looks like, let me share my screen now that Jeannie stopped hers. And it's just a really neat way to be able to get a feel for a space. Static photos don't give you the opportunity to kind of look around and see what's behind the camera, for example. How does the house flow? Um, so this has been just a huge advantage for our sellers, and a great way for prospective buyers to really get a feel for the property, um, and fall in love with it. So we've got that. We also do a lot of social media marketing. Virtual scavenger hunts are one way we promote our listings. We'll have prospective buyers, um, have to hunt through the house for, where's the yoga mat, or how many umbrellas can you find? We're also doing a lot of email marketing, to something like 5,000 or 6,000 agents across the Bay Area who are selling homes similar to the ones we have.
I got some feedback the other day on the scavenger hunt idea, and it was a buyer, and they felt that having those little items to look for really caused them to focus in on the house and made them feel much more comfortable with the property since they weren't able to go in and see it. But as they were looking for the red stool, or they were looking for a lampshade or whatever, they were also focusing in on the various rooms that they were looking in.
Right.
Great.
So yeah, we're always trying to think outside the box, and engage with buyers where they are, whether it's during the coronavirus and sheltering in place, or anything else. So
Right. So then when it comes to negotiating a contract between a buyer and a seller, again, I go back to the comment that we were talking about earlier, in that, the buyer may not have seen the property yet. And that's very key. It's the biggest investment of a buyer's life, that they feel uncomfortable about making an offer and closing on a property that they haven't yet had a chance to actually be in yet. So, that's where the sensitivity really comes in on our part in working with the sellers and being sure that we can make accommodations for those buyers to get into the property. Are you seeing any of our sellers having any pushback with regards to that?
Not really. No, I think, something that's come from this is people are a lot more understanding and a lot more patient, with regards to so many things in life. And we're definitely seeing that in the real estate industry. As listing agents and buyers agents, we're collaborating and communicating, at a level that, I don't know that I've ever really seen.
Mhm.
And sellers and buyers too, they have compassion for the other side. Now they still are negotiating heavily and, are protecting everybody's interests. But I think there's a little more patience and understanding right now, which is just great to see, to help the process.
Would you say that while we don't have a lot of inventory right now, there still is a big market in terms of buyers who are still looking for a home to purchase?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think, now that we've been forced to spend more time in our homes, we're realizing, the real meaning of home and how important it is for us. And, as we went into the start of the year, there was a lot of pent up buyer demand and still really low inventory. And it's been that way for the better part of the last year and a half. With low inventory, pent up demand, interest rates are still really favorable. I think there's a lot of folks who are sitting on the sidelines waiting this out, and plenty more who, they see the advantage and that it's a great market for them.
Right. Yeah. So one of the next few topics that we're going to have has to do with down payments and closing costs, but we're really fortunate to have Lori from Stewart Title with us on the call. And we'd like to ask Lori just to make a few comments about what the closing process is like for a buyer or a seller and dealing with the title companies.
Okay, we're basically trying to keep it as normal and what most of them are used to as possible. We're just implementing basically everything you real estate agents and the lenders are doing as far as safety procedures. We have phone calls and video calls with the clients and go over their net sheets, things like that. We basically, what we're seeing mostly is people have just a little more of an edge to them when they're going through this process, because like you've discussed, they don't actually see the house. They're not walking inside and touching, faucets and making sure the water turns on and everything does, the toilets flush, that kind of thing. So, I mean, they have a home inspection, which is what they're relying on for this. As far as escrow procedures, it's pretty much the same. We're just going through it all, but we're doing it either remotely or in a sign-off room, 6 feet apart with a mask on, hand sanitizer all over.
Right.
And Lori, you mentioned when we were chatting earlier that the state of California was kind of ready and set up for online notaries. And
yes, it's called remote online notarizations. And it's something that is already operating on the East Coast a lot and a little bit in the Midwest, but California obviously is jumping on, and we'll be ready for that as soon as possible. It'll be easier for everyone with that.
Yeah, I know that's always one of the tricky parts when it comes to sign off appointments and the final stages of closing. Everybody's scrambling, where's the seller? Oh, they're in Hawaii, or they're in, a different country. And it's just trying to track everybody down to get everything signed at the very end. So.
And using an actual person is scary for some people. I mean, we all have to be aware and alert. Right. So I think the remote online notarization will be a great asset for all of us, and just help us all stay calm and be kind and the whole bit.
Right. Lori, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Well, this concludes our brief entree into how we work with sellers. We hope that y'all have enjoyed listening and learning a little bit more than maybe you had not known before.
Yeah. And we have some recordings. We talked previously about how to purchase a home in today's environment and what that looks like. We'll share a link to that in the comments here shortly, or you can reach out to us directly. Here's our contact information for you. We're always here as advisors to answer questions, whether or not folks are planning to sell tomorrow or 5 years from now. We always say that it's never too early to start thinking about things and setting yourself up for success.
Right. So we're wishing all of you a great day and a great week, and we'll look forward to having you join us on Friday when we'll be discussing what the current market statistics look like in Santa Cruz and in the basic area.
Yeah.
Thank
And we'll have all of our videos up on our YouTube channel, Soul Property Advisors, and also on our Facebook page. So you can find us there. And hope everyone has a great afternoon, and we'll see you next time.